Imagine a world without Lego. It sounds impossible today because Lego is the most powerful toy brand on Earth. But in 2003, that nightmare was almost a reality. The company was bleeding money. Specifically, they were losing $800,000 every single day. They were panicked. They were desperate. They stopped making bricks and started making clothes, watches, and video games. The executives had decided that building was dead. They thought kids were too impatient for bricks. They were wrong. And the only thing standing between Lego and total bankruptcy was a 35-year-old former consultant who had never run a company in his life. This is the story of the greatest turnaround in business history. To understand the crash, you have to go back to the late 90s. Lego's patent on the brick had expired. Suddenly, cheap copycats were flooding the market. Executives were terrified. They looked at the data and concluded that the brick was old-fashioned. They believed the modern child didn't have the patience to build. So, they brought in the experts. Consultants who told them, don't just be a toy company. Be a lifestyle brand. This advice led to the darkest era in Lego history. They launched Galidor, a bizarre action figure line that didn't look like Lego, didn't connect to Lego, and worst of all, the kids hated it. Then came Jack Stone figures that came pre-assembled. The logic? Kids are lazy. Let's do the work for them. They were stripping away the very thing that made Lego special, the building. But the problem wasn't just the toys. It was the complexity. To make these weird new toys, Lego had to manufacture thousands of new, unique molds. Their inventory exploded from 6,000 unique parts to over 14,000. They were manufacturing pirate swords that only fit one specific pirate, and engines that only fit one specific car. Costs skyrocketed. Sales plummeted. Retailers like Walmart threatened to stop selling them because the boxes were confusing. By 2003, the company had lost its soul. They weren't a building company anymore. They were a failing fashion brand that happened to sell plastic. The family who owned Lego prepared to sell the company. It was over. But one man, a junior executive who looked more like a librarian than a CEO, had a different plan. Enter Jørgen Vig Knudstorp. He wasn't a toy designer. He was a former McKinsey consultant. He was young, quiet, and obsessed with data. While the old executives were trying to invent the next big thing, Jørgen asked a radical question. Why do people buy our bricks? His answer? Focus. He started the shared vision. He immediately sold the Legoland theme parks. He shut down the video game division. He slashed the clothing lines. Then he went for the factory. He looked at that inventory of 14,000 unique parts and said, "This is insanity." He cut the number of unique elements down to 6,000. Designers were furious. They said, "You're killing our creativity." Jørgen replied, "No, creativity thrives on restriction. If you can't build it with standard bricks, you aren't trying hard enough." It was a massive gamble, but it worked. By forcing designers to use standard bricks, the sets became more like Lego again. They were rebuildable. They were intuitive. The bleeding stopped. The company stabilized. But surviving wasn't enough. Jørgen needed a hit. He needed to make Lego cool again. He broke the oldest rule in the company: no war toys. He doubled down on partnerships like Star Wars and Harry Potter. Critics said licensing would dilute the brand. Instead, it brought in a whole new generation. Kids came for the Star Wars ships, but they stayed for the bricks. Within 2 years, the deficit was gone. Lego was profitable. But the biggest untapped resource wasn't the kids. It was the adults. For decades, Lego had a secret problem. They didn't like their adult fans. They called them AFOLs, and frankly, the executives thought they were weird. The company's strategy was strict. Lego is for children. Adults should move on. They actively ignored the thousands of engineers, architects, and artists who still loved the brick. That changed in 1998 with a product called Mindstorm's programmable robots. Within weeks of launch, hackers at Stanford University cracked the code. They didn't break it to destroy it, they broke it to make it better. They wrote their own software to make the robots do things Lego never imagined. The Lego legal team panicked. They drafted lawsuits. They wanted to sue their own superfans for tampering with the product. But Jørgen saw something else. He realized these hackers had done millions of dollars worth of R&D for free. He told the lawyers, "Don't sue them, hire them." It was a revolution. Lego opened the doors. They invited the hackers to Denmark to help design the next generation of robots. This signaled the end of the stigma. Lego realized that adults had something kids didn't have: money. They started releasing massive, expensive sets, specifically for adults. The AFOLs weren't weirdos. They were brand ambassadors. They built cathedrals, cities, and sculptures that marketed the product better than any TV commercial. By embracing the adults, Lego bridged the gap. It wasn't just a toy anymore. It was a medium for art. The turnaround was complete. Lego didn't just survive, they thrived. By returning to the brick, they unlocked a new golden age. They launched the Lego Movie, which was basically a 90-minute commercial that people paid to watch. It celebrated the very thing they tried to kill: the joy of building. Today, Lego is the #1 toy company in the world, surpassing Mattel and Hasbro. They generate billions in revenue every year. Jørgen Vig Knudstorp proved that you don't save a business by chasing trends. You save it by knowing who you are. Lego spent millions trying to reinvent the wheel, only to realize they already had the perfect product. They just needed to trust it. Sometimes, the boldest move in business isn't to change everything. It's having the courage to stay exactly the same. In a world obsessed with the next big thing, the humble brick proved that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. So, are you a strict instruction follower, or do you pour all the bricks in a pile and build something new? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this turnaround story of Lego, do subscribe to the channel. Also, do check out the incredible story of Buffalo Bills. See you next week with another interesting business story.